Testing. Testing. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council chambers. This is the second budget meeting that the city is conducting on a series of many budget meetings to follow before the end of this year. Like I said, this is budget meeting number 2. And because of the concerns that the general public has and the strain on our 2023 budget for 2024, we set this second budget meeting for Monday night so that the general public has more opportunity to come and listen as we look toward the budget to set a preliminary levy. Just for everyone's edification, the state requires that the city of Virginia and all other public entities set a preliminary budget levy no later than September 30th. They'd submit that to the state of Minnesota. And we're working toward ensuring that we set some kind of a levy. We always set a levy, and then we work on that levy to the end of the year. And by December 31st of each year, we're required to submit the final levy in a budget for the following year. And that's what we'll do in this case, just like we've done in every other case. And so this is budget meeting number 2. There'll be more to follow. And so this is, I just want to clarify that I'm sure all the councilors have received a number of calls, and me as well, about the fact that there's a perception that your property tax is going to rise 31% as a result of this levy. That's not really the case. But, you know, the levy is tied to some portion of your property taxes, so we'll be talking about that as well. But the goal and objective of this meeting is try to work out some solutions and talk about the budget, explain to the general public, all of you, maybe clarify some things, answer some questions for you, which we'll be hopefully be able to do that. And if there's an opportunity for anyone that has some solutions, we'll hear from you as well. So please bear with us as we go through this project. But before we start with the budget itself, I just want to lay out some of the issues that we have before us and some of the talking points and some of the budget considerations that we are going to have to consider, seriously consider, between the time we set the budget levy on September 30th until we set the final levy on December 30th. So everything is in play here. And the 31% levy that's in budget draft number 3 is after the staff has met with all of the department heads, after looking at all our expenditures and revenue streams, this is what the draft 2 of the budget indicates. That will change. There's already been some significant adjustments made moving forward so that we can go to the final draft as we talk further down the road about the budget. So I want to just give you like 16 quick talking points of some of the things that we may have to do. We may do some of it, all of it, or part of it. And there's some very serious decisions that we're going to have to make for 2024. So first, you know, as indicated in the graph in the packets, and there are some more packets being made up so that everybody that needs one will have an opportunity to have one. We'll have a packet for you. We're having some more printed up for you as well, so please bear with us there. But if you take a look at the packet, it says that 60% of our entire budget is for employee and benefits, but that doesn't include the retirees either. So it's a significant amount of money for employee benefits and salaries, and the rest is our operating budget. So some of the things to consider moving forward to reduce the levy, which we're looking at 31% based upon this draft, and so we're going to look at making some reductions. And so here's some of the points of the things that we are be looking at. And there'll be more, and you may have some suggestions as to more, and so will the council. Number 1 is a hiring freeze. Number 2 is staff reductions through attrition. Number 3 is direct layoffs of non-essential workers. Number 4, reduced work weeks. Number 5, no outstate travel unless required to maintain service licenses. Number 6, eliminate mileage reimbursements to all employees and require them to use a city vehicle. Number 7, transfer of ambulance service. The transferred ambulance service, permanent layoffs of EMS staff, and contract that out. That's a big expense, is our ambulance service, as you can see in the printout. These are not something we're going to do, but things we have to talk about. then transition to a volunteer paid on-call fire first responder system, which you'll lose likely, our advanced life support or paramedic system in the city of Virginia. Number 9 is eliminate healthcare benefits for all newly elected officials. Number 10, reduce the mayor and city council compensation. Number 11, negotiate a benefit package adjustments for all new employees. Number 12, sell the golf course, storage buildings, and main clubhouse when the encumbrances of the funding sources of the government sources are retired. Sell the Tennis for All facility. They're operating as a deficit. Substantially increase all rental fees for city building usage. Move to sell the Washington Manor to an HRA or a private entity. We have at least $1 million bond left on that. 15, increase garbage and sewer rates. There's been a significant lack of recycling. We're losing $440,000 a year on our garbage system, so we have to find a way in which to make those adjustments. One is to propose to talk about increase the rates for commercial garbage service. We raised it for all residential properties, but not for commercial ones. And then, of course, make all those adjustments, take a look at all those things, and have a palatable levy for 2024. These are some of the talking points we want to have to look at. There are many others to consider as well. And so, just as an example, public safety will go from $7.1 million to $8.2 million for 2024. Tennis for All facilities at a $41,000 deficit. Garbage fund, like I said, is $440,000. The ambulance service, $550,000. Iron Trail Motors, a couple of $1 million, a little bit more than that, but adjustments have been made to that, so you'll see that come out in the next draft. And then the public safety building, which is being, the bids just came back at $5 million over budget. And so adjustments are being made to that facility so that it's not going to be an encumbrance on the 2024 budget. So all those things are in play to talk about. There are some drastic things to talk about here to recommend, but we'll be working as an elected body to do that, and we'll be looking for the general public for some input on how you feel the solutions are and what you want to see. The budget is not going to look like it does in 2023. The services that you're provided will not be what they're provided in the past. There'll be a reduction of services in some way, shape, or form. So we'll have to grapple with that and try to make some adjustments to determine where they're going to be. But we have core services that we need to provide. That's police, fire, and public works. And we have a series of other recreation and other amenities that we provide. So all those things are on the table. Cuts need to be made and adjustments have to be made in order to make it a palatable levy for 2024. So thank you for your patience, and I just want to give an opening information about that. And so we're going to talk about one more thing. The number of employees that we have. In 2012, we had 97 employees. 2023, we have 155. Some are part-time, some are full-time employees. And so when you add a salary and benefit package, that increases, the money expended through the general budget, reduces the amount of service that are provided. But by reducing staff, you reduce services. By not buying equipment, you reduce the ability to service in those areas. So we have difficult decisions to make. I want to thank everybody here for coming this is a very important topic to discuss, and so we'll hope to hear from you as well, and those packets should be coming shortly. So that being said, we have 4 items on the agenda, and first is to talk about the review of the proposed general fund levy. The second would be the review of the proposed general fund expenditures. Number 3 is to review all the special revenue funds. And number 4, review the enterprise funds. And before I turn this over to our finance director, Sherry Erickson, we'll go for one step by step, review each one, and hopefully there'll be enough packets for you to look through or to share as we move forward. And I have one packet here. If we're one short, you can certainly I'll certainly give you my packet. So before we do that, go to Sherry. We'll go around to the City Council for any opening comments. Anybody from the council have any opening comments regarding our discussions today? Seeing none, Sherry, would you please start with the fiscal year 2024 proposed levy and budget? And this meeting is the budget to take a look at where our levy should be.
Okay, we're starting with a proposed levy of $1,657,296 to increase the general fund net operating levy just to cover the police and fire departments. Their expenditures equal $4,595,016 for the police department, which I must say is now and only time that I've been here, fully staffed. That's 22 patrol officers. The next one is the fire department. That's $2,359,123. You add those two together, that is what we're asking for the general fund levy to be, $6,954,139. The rest of the levy is it's on. Thanks. We have a VITA levy of $64,974. We have a special levy for the P&H Mine Pro. I think it's changed names several times down on the north side of Virginia. That is a tax abatement, and it's 100% tax abatement. So out of their taxes, we asked for $150,000 back to pay the bond that we made of $2 million for them back when they originated it, and I believe it was 2013. Debt levy, Iron Trail Motors Event Center 2020A and 2020B bond is zero because our sales tax pays for that $1 million payment. So we have been very successful in getting sales tax revenue in that we don't have to levy for that. Debt levy for the street and alley, which started in 2021. The bond on that is, the payment is $273,392. And then we have to, because we're projecting this for 2024, we have to put in escrow or get prepared for the 2025 bond payment of $1.1 million for the public safety building. And then there's other debt service, which totals $633,718. And that encompasses police radios and fire radios, tasers, public works sweepers and loaders, and our new equipment bond. On our other, I should probably say, is there any questions on that? I'm sorry.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions to date?
It should be in your packet when you get one.
Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, could we go to the top line item under the levy general fund? And we're saying it covers police and fire. This is where I was confused, I think, in our last conversation. It was my understanding, or it is my understanding, that all departments are added together and combined, and then we go through and we look at all of our revenues. So all of your expenses of all of your departments are added. Then we go to our revenues, and whatever the difference is would be the gap, or that we would be asked to levy for. So in the past, have we ever specifically stated we were requesting to levy for the public safety as a group, police, fire, ambulance? Have we ever done that in the past?
We have never set the general fund levy to cover any of the police or fire department expenditures. As you'll know, in the other revenues down below that levy section, that's where the rest of us live off of. The other departments live, and in the past, the levy hasn't been sufficient enough to cover the fire and the police. So yes, we're all pooled in this together, but the other revenues, such as your LGA, your municipal taconite aid, police and fire state aids, county tax abatement, licenses and permits, federal and state grants, our Minnesota state street monies, fines and fees, the mining effects tax, investment interest, donations, special assessments, have all been used to cover the expenses of all the departments.
Okay, but all departments are general fund? No.
Thank you.
I guess that's what I'm looking to have
In your packet on
explained.
page 12, it breaks down what's a general fund, what's special revenue, what's enterprise. In the general fund, it's the city clerk, finance office, city administration, elections, attorney, public safety, which includes police and fire, library, parks and recreation, and public works.
So it does include police and fire?
Correct. But we've never levied enough to even cover police and fire. And the reason this came out was the USDA, we're working with them on a loan, and they were reviewing our financials, and they said, you realize that you have never covered police and fire with your levy. That's very unusual for a city to not at least cover your basic services, police, fire, and public works. We're not even close to doing all three. Sherry was only estimating if we covered at least the two, police and fire, this is what the levy would be.
Okay, so I think the question that I still have is, we've never singled out a department or a group to actually base that levy number on in the past. It's whatever is in the general fund gets added together, and then whatever your revenues are, A minus B equals C is what your gap of what you would need to cover for funding. So, I mean, I guess I've had people ask me, are we gonna have services cut if you guys don't fund that full 6.9?
You will have services cut.
But specifically to that emergency department?
You don't have enough expenditures in the rest of the departments to cover the gap. Those are the two largest expenditures. Public safety has a $1.2 million increase in '24. That's where we're having.
And I appreciate you helping me understand that, but I still think that this is the very first time that I know of that we're actually specifying a department or a grouping of departments.
And that came about two ways. One, I've been told by several people that they don't want to see a levy. The only one they would support is for police and fire. There. So there's one. Two is when I filed the state levy report on December 30th to the state of Minnesota, there is a line item that says, how much of your levy, what is your police and fire? Don't have any money for this. And I have to put the fire department and the police amount in there. And it's glaringly obvious. And when the USDA, it is glaringly obvious that, no, we don't even have enough levy money in the general fund of the levy to support the public safety.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, Councilor Paulson. Any other questions from the council? Any questions in the audience who want some clarity? Okay, sir, please come forward and turn the light on to green. Please state your name for the record, if you would, please, and welcome to the budget meeting.
Yeah, I'm Mel Futzenreiter, Virginia, Minnesota. I have a kind of a question about public safety and everything. And I realize we share, the fire department when there is a large fire or we need to do that. And that's good. But I also notice we share the police department with the county sheriffs in town, the state troopers in town. We share with Evelyn, Bowabic. I mean, I see these vehicles around town. Are we paying when they're policing our area? Are they paying? Are we paying? Who's paying that bill?
Okay, we are not. And two things. The state of Minnesota has what we call zero deaths or zero tolerance funding in their budget. And so they'll put out a program where they'll have police departments throughout the area target seatbelts, phone usage, speeding, DWIs, and then these departments, they'll set certain areas in which these departments will concentrate on, and then the state pays for all that. The other departments don't. And so we have a mutual aid response. So if Gilbert needs help, we go help them. If we need help, Gilbert come, or the surrounding area. So it's called mutual aid. There's no cost involved for other departments or entities to come. We pay for none of that. It's a mutual aid agreement.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Sherry, oh, sorry, ma'am, please come forward. And if you have a question on public safety, please turn the light on to green and state your name for the record. We are right now. Yeah, we're on the levy. We're talking, you have a question about the levy? Well, come on up. I mean, please state your name for the record, ma'am, and welcome to the council meeting. You know, I know we're talking about the different departments, but this is all about how we're going to levy for next year. Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Kathy Cady, and I live in Virginia. And a couple things. I watch all the city council meetings. I also want to thank all of you, because this is thankless work, being a public servant. One of my main concerns is with the, the biggest part of the budget or the levy is with personnel or employees. And it seems to me, and I want to ask this question, is that a lot of the new employees are at the ICMEC Center. And that's very concerning to me. I watched the audit when the auditor was here, and I was kind of sad that people brushed it off and said, it's not that important, it's a one-day thing. And then it was also said that other cities all around have the same problems as Virginia, and that is not true. So I'm concerned about all the employees, all the stuff that the ICMEC gets and gives out, and it seems like the whole Parks and Recs, instead of doing things like building a splash pad or building a bike park for the kids, skate park, everything is going to ICMEC, and that concerns me. I don't think we have a big enough city to support that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katie. Okay, please come forward. State your name for the record and welcome to the budget meeting.
Thank you, and echoing what she said, thank you so much for all that you do, and for the city employees, it's not easy. This is in direct response to the public safety conversation. I don't understand local government.
And your name is?
Oh, Crystal Royer, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor
Please.
Cuffey.
Yes.
I think Administrator Seabens had mentioned that it had never been levied before, or the USDA was very curious of why it hadn't been included in the general fund. I'm wondering for how many years this has been passed over and why it hadn't been caught until this point.
That's a really great question. I did the historic in the packet. You have the historic information?
Well, it's a big packet.
Yeah, and it was page 3 or so.
Okay.
Yep, the historic information shows you that we've never levied enough to cover the budget. I don't know why it was looked over. The levy is set by the city council. The budget is set by the city council. And many years, it was a struggle to even get the 3% passed. So it was just never been to that point that and like Sherry mentioned, the police department's never been fully staffed until now.
Sure. And please know that my apprehension isn't about anything public service, those type of services oriented. It's, I have more to say later out of this.
Okay, thank you. And just a point that the public safety, when we're running at a deficit, and that's why we're here today to try to make some changes, and including in the general fund. That's why you see the general fund levy request to increase, because we were drawing from reserves in order to cover the costs associated with not being able to fund it through the levy. So by putting in the budget, it increases the levy, but salvages our reserve funding. Thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. So, and I think there's a little misconception on our public safety, especially our fire and ambulance, that as many runs as they make for that ambulance, we have struggled and have tried to find alternate funding because we have such a large area that we respond to. And I believe you may be able to explain the way that we're reimbursed for that. It's not, I don't feel it's so much a city issue. We try to find the funding for that, but it's how we're reimbursed for all the runs that we make. So I'll let that be explained. Thank you.
Sure. We have a ambulance license. We've had it for a long time. We provide ambulance service for a minimum of a 640 square mile area throughout this region. If an emergency call goes out, there's a call, we'll respond to assist an ambulance. Because we're a full-time ambulance fire department, we have what they call ALS, which is advanced life support, which are paramedics. These paramedics can not only do the ABCs of medical attention, which is airway, breathing, and circulation, they can also administer drugs. Narcotics are trained to do that to help save people's lives. And so if they get to somebody within 6 minutes or do an intercept, they could save somebody's life. So when an ambulance service needs more medical care, a volunteer ambulance service, they call upon the city of Virginia, which to do so, and we respond. We have a mutual aid. By responding there, you're looking at a $1,500 to $2,000 ambulance call, sometimes even more, based upon how far you have to go and how many paramedics are on that trip. And so, if you don't have insurance, and there's this private pay, it's hard to get the reimbursement on the private pay. We have to write off some of that because they don't pay. They don't have the money to pay. And then the biggest issue is the reimbursement rates from Medicare. We only get about $400 to $450 an ambulance run to cover the costs associated with all Medicare patients. That doesn't cover costs at all. Now, we've been down to the legislature, and we're talking about the levy now, but this is part of the levy. We've been down to the legislature on a number of occasions to try to get some additional funding to get a law passed to issue a taxing district in the region. So if somebody outside the city limits of Virginia wants ambulance service ALS, they'll have to pay X amount of dollars a year out of their, from their property taxes in which to do that, whether it's $5 or $10 a year, whatever the case be, to help offset those costs. The legislature has not been amenable to that. There is an issue with, in 2002, there was a study done by the Minnesota Department of Health. It's called Rural Ambulance Service Crisis, and nothing's been done since 2002 to help. So we are the only game in town to provide emergency services in this 640 square mile area. So when the service that we provide, the only reimbursement we get, and as Councilor Bionis needed an explanation, and as she had indicated, that's why we're running at a deficit, because we can't recover our costs associated with the ambulance run. So do we want ambulance service in Virginia or not? Or do we want to limit it to only the city limits of Virginia? Therefore, that ambulance license has to be adjusted or reapplied for. Those kind of things have to be considered moving forward. So that's why there's a big gap in the revenue stream, and that's why every year we've had to take out of our reserve funds money to cover the costs associated with covering the ambulance service so we can continue to provide ALS service in Virginia. Does that explain it?
It does, but I just don't want it to be perceived that that's one thing we're cutting.
No,
I think that's very important to the public. So even though it's on there as the top item, I think there's many other areas we need to work on.
Yeah, I concur. These are just some of the points that we have to talk about moving forward. And, what does the general public want? What do we want? What services are we able to provide in 2024? That's just one of many. And thank you for that, Councilor Beyondich. Okay. Sherry?
Okay, well, that was a little discussion on special revenue funds. We can get back to the general fund. In the special revenue funds, I should tell you, ambulance sits there, not to be confused with fire. Iron Trail Motors Event Center and the Tennis for All. Okay, so once we've done the total revenue operating revenues that we anticipate coming in will be 11 of the miscellaneous or other revenues other than a levy will be $11,471,351. When you combine that with the proposed levy and the debt service levy, we have total operating of, I'm going to do this, my other one here. $21,069,515. That includes a transfer in from reserves of $654,783. It also includes a transfer in of the general fund from other sources such as the public utilities of $225,100. This is for their portion of the Amariso, the electrical that we did, the lighting in the city about 3 years ago, and then a portion of the streets that we're redoing in the city, the utilities under there that are theirs. The transfers from the revenue, the reserves to the general fund, they're in there to balance it, but it's not necessary if we can reduce expenses during the year, or if our revenue somehow, which it has in the past, either through grants or other funding for projects come through, we don't necessarily transfer that much. So we haven't touched our investments yet.
And so the goal and objective for us at this levy discussion is to not tap into our investments and not to transfer any more money from our reserves to fund some of these projects, right?
Correct. So far, the general fund has been healthy enough that we have not had to cash in any of our investments.
Thank you. So the current proposal on this budget that we're looking at, this is the working document that we're working on to try to make these reductions and ensure that we have a palatable levy by the end of this year. And in this, this is a budget discussion, which is our second budget meeting, but I think a bunch more drafts have already come out since draft number 3, actually. And so our goal and objective here is to have the general public and for all of us to talk about the levy. What can we do and what do we have to do? And that's what we're all here for, in order to accomplish that goal. Not to use our investments, not to use any reserve funding anymore, because we don't want the river to run dry, for the lack of a better term. We want to be able to fund the entire budget without using the reserves or investments. So that's why right now we're looking at 31%, but without making any additional cuts in the things that we're talking about today to reduce the levy. Is that correct?
We would still have to do some cutting.
Oh, yeah, we still have to do some cuts, but the issue is that where do we cut, how much do we have to cut? And we have to do that in order,
Not in the general fund.
not from the general fund.
Correct.
Correct, thank you. Thank you, Britt. Okay,
And if I can say on page 12, I don't know if you all have. a
Page
packet.
12?
Yeah. There's 3 main things here. What we need to do is set the levy for the general fund. The general fund consists of government, city clerk, finance, public works, park and rec, library, public safety, police and fire, the attorney's office, and elections. Just the general, that's in the general fund. The special revenue funds are the ones I listed earlier. And then the enterprise funds, your Washington Manor, solid waste, recycling, sewer, golf course, clinic lease, and restaurant. These enterprise funds should be self-supporting. They should at least break even. I can say that there's quite a few that are not breaking even, and they haven't been breaking even in the last 20 years. You need to stop the bleeding. And we are looking at some things, and I'll let the city administrator tell you about some of our ideas. But the special revenue funds, this is another hot topic, is your ambulance fund. Obviously, we have a fantastic service that the whole northern county wants us. And we respond, because we're probably the only game in town, ALS. If we decide to reduce that, you're gonna, I mean, I think I have the deputy chief in the audience here. Eric, tell us what would happen if we reduced our services, didn't respond to calls?
This is our Assistant Chief, Eric Jonason. Eric, welcome to the budget meeting, and could you just give a little rundown of what the consequences are for us if we didn't have this service?
Consequences, prior to working for Virginia Fire, I came from private ambulance and hospital-based ambulance. I worked for North Memorial. They're technically a hospital-based ambulance, and they staff to make money. We staff to provide public safety, fire, and EMS. Our minimum staffing is 6 fire medics and 1 EMT and or paramedic single role. If we reduce staffing, or if the city decides to go a different way on contract with, say, an essential entity, they're going to staff to make money. You're going to have probably 1 ambulance that has a staff and 1 crew that's on call. The primary goal will be to take transfers, because that's what makes money. Secondary goal will be providing 911, and they'll rely heavily on mutual aid, which is what happens in Buell and Sandstone, Deer River, Meds 1. All the private ambulance services rely on mutual aid so they can take transfers and make money. You'll definitely see a decrease in EMS response, longer times, waiting for mutual aid ambulances to come into the city more often, and fire will be dramatically different. Right now, we can put an engine company on scene with 4 firefighters within the city limits in 5 or 6 minutes from dispatch time. That's us getting the notification, rolling out of the building, and arriving on scene. No paid on call around us can put 4 people on scene in 5 or 6 minutes. I've personally been in command of fires where we've had water on the fire and the water extinguished in under 10 minutes from being time of call to water on the fire, and the fire's out in apartment buildings. Paid on call, those apartment buildings would suffer severe losses or worse. So.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Sir? Mr. Fritzenreuter?
Yeah, Mel Futzenreiter again. As far as the fire department, I can't say enough for them. They're exceptional. But again, the word is making money. Now, if this 31 to whatever levy you come up with, in College Park, where I've raised my kids here, they've gone to school here, I've had 2 homes here now, and I thought I was in my last home. I've spent all my money investing in my home. I've watched my taxes raise. I went from Lake Vermilion after 5 years living on Lake Vermilion. I came back to Virginia. I worked at Essentia, and I'm retired from the city of Virginia. I know this whole program. I've watched snow removal decline. I've watched it. Nobody, when I started for the city in 1977, you didn't pull snow off the street into a windrow and leave it. That's what happens, and that's what happened last year. On the main street, I took a header right in front of Grandy's. It hurt. Did it screw me up? No, but it hurt. And I'm all for public safety and what's best for the community, but I'm not gonna spread myself over 640 miles of my money over 640 miles. You know what? Tell them to get their own damn ambulance. That's not my problem. My problem is right here for my children that all live here in this town. And that's my concern. 31%, I'm done. I'm done. I'm gonna have to sell my home. I'm now approaching Lake Vermilion taxes. I don't know what to do. And if I sell my house, where in the hell am I gonna live?
Well, just to clarify, Mr. Frenzeruder, you know, a portion of the levy that's is Virginia property tax, but your property taxes aren't going to raise 31% in the city of Virginia. That's not what the levy is.
But that money's gotta come from somebody. Am I correct? It's gonna have to come from the people of Virginia. I mean, it's gotta come from somebody. We can just, here, I got $5. Okay, there. Now, is that gonna be my portion? No, it's not. You're gonna $5 the death out of everybody in town, and we don't have it. Not after we built all the schools, the new Miners Memorial, and God only knows what's next coming. And I realize we gotta do is spend the money to create, like, what's Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. Well, that's fine. I agree with that. But you know what? Somewhere, who said it? Stop the bleeding? Well, we got to stop the bleeding. I mean, I don't know where to go. I mean, I figured 14 years ago when I bought my house in College Park that was going to be my last home. If I have to sell it and move someplace else, I'm going to end up in a tiny home on a small lot.
And you know, Mr. Fretzer, that's why we're here. We're going to try to figure out how we can reduce the levy and make it palatable.
I hope you all can, because I've spent all the money that I've made in this town. I don't go to Duluth. I don't go to the box stores. I take care of the small businesses in this town. I do. That's where I go. I don't run all over the God's green earth trying to find the best deal. I spend my money here. And you know what? If I have to go out to buy a stove somewhere else, I'll pay the money extra in Virginia just because of the service I get in Virginia. And that's from all of you. That's all of you. I mean, I know most of you. And you know what? I'm proud of living here. But I can't afford it. You're breaking me. Between the county and the city, I don't know who's screwing me more. Geez, I'm done. I'm sorry, but I'm done.
Well, Mr. Fretzenruder, there isn't a person that sits in this room that doesn't feel the same way you do, including those around us who sit here. That's why we're here, to try to find a solution so that doesn't happen. I appreciate your passion. Thank you for speaking from your heart and from your pocketbook, too. So we need to figure this out.
Mayor, I think a lot of what I have to talk about
Mr. Lency?
would address some of these issues.
Mr. Lency, just one moment, please.
Whenever,
Just one moment, please. Did you have anything else, Sherry?
No, go ahead and I'll
Mr. Lency?
comment later.
For the record, please state your name for the record.
my name is Greg
All right,
Letzi.
thank you.
I'm a homeowner in Virginia and a 30-year business owner in Virginia. My goal tonight is to talk about the audit specifically and to try to come up with some positive solutions to help everybody out here, us as homeowners and you as a city council, because you got it in deep here. So today I met with our auditor, Knudsen, Greg, and I had a nice meeting with him. It was quite extensive. And I wanted him, first of all, to simplify the budget, the debt, what we owe, how much money we have, right? Just like we would do at home. So I didn't want accounts that were named different names, bank accounts, investments, all that stuff. Extremely difficult to follow. Everybody here was struggling at that meeting to follow that accounting. It was really difficult, and you maybe had a handle on it because you have more experience at that specific thing, but the layman and some of the council people, forget it. I mean, it was impossible to follow. Bottom line, this city owes in debt, long-term debt, not the short term, long-term is 1 year to infinity, $58 million. Okay? So we have funds, cash, that we can pull, right? If bottom line, you're going broke at home, you empty the cash, you go to the bank. So we got 10 million in an account that's an investment account that is available somewhat. 16 million in an account that's extremely difficult to get out. The accountant says that's an account that would cost you money to take out. I'm assuming that, right? So there's cash that's saved from years back, which is beautiful, wonderful. And getting down to the checkbook. So that checkbook is at $4.3 million right now. And there's companies in this town that operate on a daily basis with that kind of money. Not a city municipality. I'm talking companies. So am I close on that? This was August 15th when the audit came out.
What date are you talking about, Mr. Lindsay?
Well, this would be the general fund for, it depleted from 6.7 million a year ago to 4.3 million.
That was for the year 222. Right now, it's over
Correct.
6 million, yeah.
Correct.
And that would have been the
All these numbers are based
Iron
on
Okay,
the audit, which would be from 2022.
this is from 2022.
Right.
So there's a change, our prior instructor says in 2023, but please continue.
But everything going forward for your budget is based on what happened behind us. And possibly future expenses coming in, right? But it's not guaranteed. We don't have any ironclad contracts. People are going to give us money. The state, you got any commitments from the state that says they're going to get money? It's kind of a wishful thing at this point. But I'm going to move on. I'm going to try to keep it simple and quick. So the big issue is the IMAC. And at that audit, it was $2.5 million running deficit. That operating deficit is not paying for the building. The building's being paid for, which is a beautiful thing. The operating costs, $2.5 million. So I'm going to break that down really nice. That's $208,000 a month and $52,000 a week. So that's some real money, real money coming out of our pockets. All of our pockets. That's mine, yours, every homeowner, every business owner in this town. And we're well represented tonight by some really good people. And we all feel it. But what we want to do is have a solution, right? So, and we're all in it together. So the solutions are you cut spending or you increase revenue. It's that simple. There's no accounting miracle here. That's the only options that are available at this time. And the other concerning thing was, Mr. Knutson stated specifically, we have 1 year, 7 months from August 15th to insolvency. Now it's 1 year and 6 months. And that clock is ticking real quick. So your recommendations about everything on the table, I never even thought about that stuff. Selling the golf course or any other entity the city has. Nobody wants to get to that point. But it's on the table. You put it on the table, and it makes sense to put it there for discussion. So in order to cover that immediate loss, that doesn't include the fire hall. That's a serious number to deal with. So you either cut people in one department to support the MEC, or you cut the MEC and hope that it can function with fewer people. And I don't know if there's any employees in the city of Virginia that really want to give up their position to support the MEC. But that's not my decision, that's your decision to make. So in order to correct some of these issues, a drastic change has to happen in your expenditures. I mean, 50 grand a week, that's the auditor's number. That's a number. That's a real number. So these cuts and whatever changes are going to be made have to be made now. If we come back here 1 year from now and no changes have been made, you think this crowd is wild? Well, not that wild tonight, but they will be. So, and everybody will.
Well, internally, I think so.
Right, internally, maybe so. So hopefully I'm speaking for them. It's hard to determine how to correct that issue right now. But at my audit meeting, I proposed as a suggestion, okay, if we raised the levy 45%, I said, how much money are we going to gain from that over last year's numbers based on everything we had last year? What are we going to get out of that? So 45% is a massive increase. And I wanted to know what the number is. What are we going to get out of it? You know what we're going to get? $2.3 million. We're going to get nothing. It won't cover the loss from the MEC. So levying out of this problem is not going to work. No, Mel, it's not going to work. That's not even going to come close. If you slash and burn, we'll be lucky to come even close to breaking even. And I mean layoffs, cuts, and it could be short term, but I see no end game at the MEC for revenue. And I know it's an optimistic or a pessimistic attitude at this time, but I'm trying to be real. So if there was tons of people booking that MEC and people knocking on your door to get in there, I'd say, all right, it's coming. But that's not happening. It isn't happening. And I'm regretful to say this, and I hope I can eat my words, but I hope it does come someday. But it isn't today, and it's not going to be this coming year or next year. So to say that the levy may help, yeah, it might help, but it sure isn't going to solve the problem. And so the solution part of this.
Yep, solution part, thank you.
Okay, and the next elephant is the expenditure upcoming for the next building. So in my opinion, it would be reckless to go ahead and spend money, that kind of money, on a new building. Irresponsible and reckless. As a council, you have a duty to make sure that our city is solvent. That's not a wishful thing that we think about, that geez, we hope you guys take care of us. It's your duty. If you fail as a council and make poor business decisions, you have a liability. In other words, if it fails because of poor business decisions, you guys aren't just council people, you made the decisions. So it's serious. You're business owners now. You're not council people. You're like the rest of the people in this audience. So how do we get out of that? You guys, I have a suggestion. You contact Knudsen. You direct him to get a financial entity that will do a micro image of the new building that's being proposed, the fire hall, right? So you get Knudsen, who is your auditor, and let him pick another source, an outside source. The auditor won't make these recommendations to the cities. I asked him, can you make a recommendation what they should do? Should they proceed with the building or not? He said, we don't like to do that. And the reason was that they have that responsibility on their shoulders. Our accountant told us we could build the building. And if the building fails, costs us $2.5 million a year, to operate, Mr. Knutsen's on the hook. So, but he has people that would be an outside source other than his firm. So you would have two people involved in this decision-making. You get the financial guy to come in, do a miniature audit on our finances, and let him make the decision to the council whether you can proceed with the building or not. Simple as that. Not a costly item, very logical, and it protects all of you, and it gives the citizens some backing that we can trust. We can rely on this because it's outside sources. So one great example on how we can proceed and not necessarily cancel the fire project, but postpone it for sure. To proceed would be, like I said, it would be borderline negligent based on these numbers. So the scope of the project can change. The location can change. There's tons of things that can change. We have money from the state now. We're on the hook for money from the state, right? So since the time that that building was proposed, it was $18 million or $17.5 million. So through the pandemic and whatever delays, it's escalated to 30 plus. So no one at that end, your developer or the state, can say, you guys blew it. It was out of your control. The costs escalated because of delays and other things. So now we're sitting as a city and we're saying, hey, we can't spend $35 million, but we need a fire hall. We need it bad. So what are we going to do? We owe you $10 million at the state. So we got half the town dug up. We could use that site, downgrade the scope of the project, postpone it, tell the state we have to postpone it indefinitely, postpone it 2 years, whatever. Don't make a commitment and let the state say, well, okay, we don't have a problem with that, or pay up. That's what the state's going to say. Go ahead.
We're working on that.
Okay?
That's in process
Very
right
good.
now. It's
You're
in
ahead of me.
process right now.
So the next thing would be to change, let's see, the location. I lost my train of thought there, Larry. Thanks, buddy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Okay,
you.
the developer part of it. So there's costs at the development end of this too. So the same scenario would play out with them. You know, you approach the development people and say, this is what happened, we're done. This price is unrealistic for us, it's out of control, we can't do it.
Rebid it.
So the developer's gonna say, well, you owe us some money. Well, how much money? Well, we'll think about it. Or they're gonna say, if we want any future work with the city of Virginia, I'm gonna go back with my fellow people at the development firm, and we're gonna talk this over, we'll get back to you. And they're gonna think about it hard, because if they burn the city, they're gonna burn any future development they have with the city. So they're gonna think about that. They're gonna think about it, their costs.
And like I said, we are in conversation, making efforts to make some adjustments to that entire project. And all those things are on the table right now, Mr. Lindsay.
But I think everybody here would feel better on that point if you had an outside source tell you, go ahead. Don't make that decision yourselves. You can't do it. No one here is qualified by themselves to make that decision. You shouldn't be put in that position. You know, you're talking about $35 million. You need expertise backing you up, looking at your finances, looking at the building, and saying, hey, you know, this building might end up just like the MEC. You know, who's going to tell me or anybody here that it's not going to end up like that? So now we're looking at $5 million a year, 2.5 at the MEC and 2.5 at the new building in operating costs. So If that person, that outside source, Knudsen and another financial advisor, gives you the thumbs up, everybody here is going to say, all right, these are the experts, maybe we can go ahead. But if you get the thumb down, back out of it, man, just as fast as you can, because it's going to bury this city. We'll never survive it. We can build a fire hall. I could have a steel building up in that parking lot next to that fire hall in 1 year to cover every truck in that fire hall, in that parking lot, without tearing down any buildings over here. And if that lot wasn't big enough, Staver's Foundry was big enough. A steel building 100 feet wide and 500 feet long, 50,000 square feet is 11 million bucks. 50,000 square feet of steel building. That's high sidewalls to accommodate fire trucks and whatever else. That is a football field enclosed in a building. Football field's 57,000 square feet. So there's options. The city, it'd be wonderful to have a building like that, like the MEC and similar. It'd be beautiful. And everybody'd love it. It'd be great. But the reality is we're a little town, and it's difficult to grow. And we need to take baby steps sometimes, not big steps. Sometimes big steps can cost us some money that we didn't really notice about. And I hope that some of those recommendations, the cuts, we can't help you with that. We can't help you there. The revenue, you see what it is. It is what it is. To try to cover 50 grand a week to cover that debt coming in there, you couldn't rent that out. No how. I don't care who came in there. You wouldn't be able to rent it out for that kind of money. Every week, all week, for a full year to cover, just to break even. So it's a pessimistic kind of way to look at that, but I kind of look at it as more of a reality check than a pessimistic check.
And as you indicated, Mr. Lindsay, these are all those things that we have to talk about from now until the end of the year. We need to meet the state requirement of setting a preliminary budget levy so that we can work toward a reduction to what we're going to be at the end of this year. That's our goal and objective. And all these cuts and all these suggestions you made are all the things that are on the table right now for us to take a look at. We are going to maintain a level of responsibility to try to do the prudent work for us. With the Iron Terre Moise Event Center, there's always already things in the works to try to make some adjustments there. We'll see where that goes, and same with the public safety building. These are major costs associated with our budget, and so the levy's got to reflect what do the citizens want, what are we going to do. So with all those things that you talked about that are in that budget for 2024, and this budget number 3 in our second budget meeting, it's not going to be the same by the end of the year. We have to make some significant changes. Staff realizes that. The council realizes that. It's probably a very difficult year for us moving forward, but we're going to have to make the hard decisions. And like you indicated, it's on the city council and the mayor to make sure that we have a solvency in our city, and we'll work toward to make sure that happens. We don't want to tap into our investments or our reserves any longer. So we have to do something to make some drastic changes, and we're prepared to do that.
And I can't impress upon you how soon this has to happen. I mean, it can't be 6, 8, 9 months from now. Action has to be taken now. That action with the accountant could be done tomorrow. So if that came back in a month, that miniature audit, that has to be taken off the table. It's one less thing that's off the budget, off everybody's mind in this building, and we'll move on. We'll go to something else. Take it off the table. If the word comes back from outside source, you can't do it. The decision's made. You're off the hook. You didn't make the decision. It was financially made by 2 experts, a professional auditor and a financial person that he picks, of his choice. The two of them will make a proposal, come back and make an assessment. Done this week. Get it moving. That kind of stuff's got to happen quick to eliminate it or move forward with it. We have to know. It can't happen 6 months from now. It'll be too late. At $52,000 a week. That clock is really ticking. So pressure's on. We want to help, right?
That's why you're here.
It's not a negative, it's a positive.
Thank you, Mr. Lency. Okay, so this is budget meeting number 2. We were looking to take a look at what the levy could or where the levy should be or where we're at, and the council has to decide if we want to set a preliminary levy based upon the recommendations from, they're not the recommendations, this is just the way it is right now with all the expenses that we have, all the information that's in the budget. If we were to keep everything that's in there without making any other changes at all, that's where the recommendation for the levy will have to be. Now, we have to set that levy by the 30th, so we're going to have to do that either tonight with the full council to set a levy and then work toward reducing that to the end of the year, employing some of the tactics that we've already employed and some of the suggestions that you made, Mr. Lency, in order to accomplish that goal and objective. Whether we have enough votes to set the levy right now, we will have to have another budget meeting regardless as we move forward, but we need to set the levy before the 30th. So if we don't do tonight, there'll be some additional budget meetings as well, and taking into account everything everybody said here today in order to accomplish the goals and objectives to keep the city running fluidly and above water. So, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Lency. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate you coming forward with some tangible solutions that make sense, and some steps how to get there. And I thank everybody for coming. This has been a really stressful week, stressful couple weeks, and weighing very heavily on my mind and in my heart. So I guess I want to ask a question. Where we're at right now at the 31.3%, that would be no layoffs and no staff reductions, or will that be?
In the general fund. So those departments that fall under general fund will have no layoffs and no staff reduction and no service reduction. The general fund are your services. That's the library, the parks, public works, public safety, administration, finance.
So what departments are outside of the general fund?
Iron Trail Motors Event Center, ambulance.
You've got them in the Iron Trail, you've got them in the general fund under Park and Recreation.
We have a portion of them in recreation. Their budget is actually in the special revenue fund. If you look, and that's a great segue to number 1C on here, if you actually look at page 57, I think this is what you were requesting at the last meeting, something a little better to see the revenues versus the expenditures on one sheet so you could see it a little easier. On page 57, we have the Tennis for All building, which right now, the way we are projecting 2024 to go, they're going to be in the hole $41,975. What happens when a special revenue fund goes in the hole for years, at the time of audit, this general fund has to pay that back. So in 2022, when they told us our fund balance was reduced, it's because we had to cover those that had losses. The Iron Trail Motors Event Center, I want to point out, it looks like it's going to balance if we do reductions in staff. This is exactly what Mr. Lency was talking about. But because the staff at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center are AFSCME, this would invoke clauses in the AFSCME contract that we have to have some serious discussions about if we do any layoffs at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. The ambulance, you'll see, is projected to have a revenue deficit of $545,626 in 2024 with the projections we know today.
And are those after both the ITMEC transfer and the ambulance transfers in a ITMEC of 1.2 million transferring in from reserves? And that's
1.2 million coming from the levy because recreation.
Oh, because you removed that. That was on draft 3.
That was the last meeting, yep. And then the ambulance does not have the transfer in it.
Okay. And where do you show, let's go back in. Under this special revenue.
Yep.
On page 9, under Iron Trail Motors Event Center Fund 260, states that that includes a
That includes that.
$1.2
And that
million
still
transfer
includes
in.
layoffs of staff.
So we're still transferring, you're saying that that 1.2 million is what's included in the levy number?
Yes.
But I thought the general levy was supposed to be just on, covers police, fire, at the 6.9. Where do we have,
Can I step in?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
there's no line item for,
It would fall under other revenues. All of the revenues that you see in the general fund go into general fund 101.
LGA, mining effects, tax, special assessments, those all go into 101.
I don't see 1.2 million.
It wouldn't be that, it's part of the LGA, so it's part of that 7 million that comes in, that's the revenue.
We would have to take 1.2 million out of that LGA there, 7 million, to transfer to the Iron Trail Event Center.
So you're saying, for the general public clarification, that the money for the $1.2 million that's transferred is coming from the LGA, local government aid.
Correct, or else you can take it from the municipal taconite aid of 1.2 million to $26,000. I mean, that whole $11,471,351 is other revenues, which include LGA, taconite aid, all of these others.
And I think didn't you just say though, that was from the levy?
That was a misspeak.
It's
That was
misspeak, it's from the, I should have said from the general fund is what I should have said, yes.
The levy.
Can you understand why this is confusing?
It is confusing, it's very confusing.
So you still have under special revenue, we're transferring in $1.2 million.
Correct.
That money is coming specifically from the LGA that we are receiving of $7,043 and $7
Coming
million.
from that other revenues fund.
Other revenue funds. The LJ is a line item in the general 101 revenue column, but we don't expense against revenue in governmental accounting. It will have its own, the transfer out will have its own transfer code, expense code, but it's coming out of the general fund's checking account, which includes the $11,471,351 in other revenues. And that's where that transfer would come from.
Now I think I'm following that. But again, that transfer in isn't revenue.
Correct. So
It's
on-
not cash coming in, I mean,
Correct.
it's not.
Correct.
The
So on
city would
page-
subsidize it.
Correct.
And so so we're still, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what you were saying is why people are here tonight is they're not happy that their taxes are going to go up at that their taxes aren't going up 31.3%.
Levies, yeah.
That's the levy. Their taxes will increase, and they will increase significantly depending upon, I think it's
The value of their home.
the last page in
very
our
last
packet. Right, depending upon the value of your home. So what I'm sitting here tonight trying to understand is with Mr. Lency bringing forward kind of the thought process that he brought forward, we're still being asked to consider a 31.3% increase in our tax levy, and that doesn't decrease anything other than ITMEC employees.
Yes, the levy funds the general fund, and at the last meeting, I mentioned this, that we are coming to you guys for help, because we don't know where to cut in the general fund to cut that levy down. We need assistance. What do we want to cut, service-wise, people-wise, office-wise, whatever it may be, in order to get the levy down?
And I think that's why we're here tonight as well.
That is why we're here, yep.
So,
Yes, that
I'm
is why
trying to
we're here tonight.
understand what we need to do in terms of reduction. And So if everyone can see in the last page of your packet, there's a spreadsheet that was given to us by, I believe it was someone at the St. Louis County Auditor's Office. And up at the top right corner, it's on the left side, it says enter proposed rate. And that rate is stated at 31%. And we received that in an email, in an Excel spreadsheet, so we could go in and change that number, and then the math changes accordingly across the whole entire table. So I was playing around with some numbers, and unfortunately, my computer doesn't work. But this is part of the balance, in my opinion, Mayor, that we're tasked with creating a balance. And so when I look at what this balance is, and I'm glad I actually took a screenshot. So if we went to a proposed levy of 20%, your tax, and I'm sorry, this is a little difficult that I'm reading it off of my phone here. At $100,000, $100,000 valued home, it'd be approximately $200. $150,000, approximately $350. $200,000 home, almost $500. $250,000 home, almost $650, and a $300,000 home, almost $800. Those are pretty significant increases, and that's at 20%. Now, if we go to 15%, obviously it goes down, and then 10% goes down further. So at what point do we get some recommendations coming from staff that say, okay, you know, we can't levy, especially what you're saying at that what did you say, 2 point, you're still not covering the balance. You're still not covered. And there's still other things in here, I think that aren't actually included in this, and I'll have to talk to Sherry about that. But I'm trying to understand where we sit tonight to have to make these hard decisions. Where is the balance? There's got to be some reduction in expense, and then we have to reduce that levy. I can't, in my conscience, I can't vote for a levy increase that high. I think that shows a level of irresponsibility on behalf of a council just setting a levy that high and not reining in the expenditures that have happened in the past. So that's where I'm coming from, and I feel like I want to hear some solutions. I so appreciate you brought solutions forward. They're very difficult to have discussion about, but I feel that, in my opinion, we have to be tasked with whatever this balancing act might look like. But I don't know if we will be provided from staff what those different, we say, okay, what does 10% look like? What is 12%, 15, and 20, or what have you? I would love some different scenarios as to how that might impact our staffing levels. And the tax implications are going to be here. And if you do look at the historical data, I don't believe that the city of Virginia has raised taxes, raised the levy that high ever in the history of Virginia. So I don't know why, I guess for me, just to have a little personal bit of frustration expressed, I don't know why we've even been asked to consider raising a levy at 31.1%. I think that's never happened in the history of Virginia. And the highest that I guess we have provided here from the years 2007 to 2023, the highest we ever went was in 2017, and that was probably because of the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. That was at 14%. And then back in 2008, it was at 10%. And I believe that was probably due to something, probably within the recessionary period during those years. So I want to help be a part of the problem solving, but I also need more key pieces of information to help me make this decision and unburden our tax base and start to really look at what things that we can lower as a city in terms of our expenditures. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Paulson. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. Staff is making these recommendations, says, look, this is what the budget is right now, and if we keep it the way this is, it's going to be a 31% increase. Looking for some direction from us as well. Where are we going to cut? We have to cut somewhere. We have to cut expenses someplace. We, as a council and a mayor, have to make that decision in order to reduce that levy significantly. So laying this out, which is this one of many, many drafts between now and the end of the year, in order to reduce that, we're going to have those serious conversations about where we're going to go, how we want to cut, what things can we do short of cutting personnel. I mean, we have to cut personnel. But all these things that I laid out earlier are on the table for discussion for us as a council to make those hard decisions to determine where we want to be. And service is going to be cut regardless in order to reduce below 31%. There's nothing more we can do. We have to make some cuts. We have to determine what that is. And with working with staff and us, working together between the time we set the levy, or now, and to the end of the year, we'll have to make those cuts before the final levy is established by December 31st of 2023. So I'm with you. Yeah, please, Councilor Paulson, and then we'll go to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. So I feel that, and I understand we are going to be working on this. It's going to be a work in progress. I don't think that I can vote to just say, yep, let's do 31.3 as the proposed and then work our way down. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And so I would like to get some numbers on what those tax implications look like at the different percentages, maybe 10, 12, 15, and possibly 20. And that will help me make an informed decision. But I just, out of the gate, I can't say, hey, 31.3, and then let's work backwards from that. That's not my comfort level. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. And we have until the 30th to make that decision. So if we get some more information from staff, what those look like, we can have another couple special meetings. We have 2, 3, or 4, whatever we have to do in order to be able to come to an agreement on where we want to set the discussion levy for the end of the year. So thank you for that. Councilor Motley.
You want to speak first, and then I'll go after you. Thank you.
Ma'am? Ms. Katie? Would you like to turn that light on to green? Thank you very much.
Where does the money for streets, alleys, and sidewalks come from?
General fund.
Okay, and because I think that the council needs to really focus on the police, the ambulance, the fire department, and streets and alleys. That's what everybody talks about in this community. Everybody.
Those are our core services.
Yes, that's what, and the rest of that stuff, cut.
Thank you. Please come forward and turn on the green light if it's not on, and please state your name for the record, and welcome once again to the budget meeting.
Yes, thank you. So I have solutions and I also have curiosities. I had done a data request and your staff has been phenomenal in communicating with me. Again, so much respect and gratitude to answering my one-off questions. And Administrator, please correct me if I'm wrong. I had requested a comp and overtime accrual sheet from what I had assumed was from January through July. And as I learned more about local government, the program year is different, the fiscal year is different, and then payout dates are different. And from my conversation this morning, it's my understanding that nearly 3,000 hours of overtime has been comped. And this is outside of police, fire, and law enforcement. This is outside of that. This is a majority of that 3,000 hours, 1,283 hours are attributed to the ITMEC. I did a quick gov salary. We have public, positions. The average salary for the city of Virginia is about $58,000. I don't know if that's true or accurate. But I'm wondering, in the months of from April 2nd through July 13th, how can the Parks and Rec Department clock 1,280 hours for about $125,000?
Now, are you talking about compensatory time or total overtime?
So those are my curiosities. I have my screenshot. Maybe Britt can provide insights. I can read you what I have from that data request. I don't know how to interpret it, but from a verification with Administrator C. Benz this morning, that was OT comp time.
I'll have to look back because April and May, we were plowing. Park and Rec people do plow snow. So if they were out plowing, which our ITMEC people do also plow,
Okay,
that could have been a majority of that time. But I'll have to look back and see what the basis was.
okay. But how does, so then it's dependent on what the weather is doing for those?
I
And
recall in April and May, we had those really big storms. We had a lot
Yeah.
of snowfall.
two of them.
They would have been out there doing that too.
Okay. And then regarding the staffing, I am the person that came forth in July, curious why there was someone mowing on a Sunday afternoon around Bailey's Lake or Silver Lake, and that was a regularly scheduled shift for the ITMAC, who is running at a $2.2 million deficit. 2.5. These are really big numbers. I'm a simple gal. I don't understand them. Do you guys have any insights into that? Why something running at such a huge deficit, those employees are being diverted elsewhere?
The same department. They're all part of the Park and Recreation Department.
Okay.
And so if they, in the middle of doing ice sheets, they do the ice sheets every 45 minutes or so, they will go out and mow. Come back, do their ice sheet, and go out and mow.
Yeah, this is all part of Park and Recreation, and they're not specifically designated at the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center. That's their main job. But when other work needs to be done in Park and Recreation, they do that as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the patience. This is why I started getting curious. Is it true that the city of Virginia uses taxpayer dollars to outfit break rooms with coffee and creamers and plastic cutlery? Is that
Yes,
true?
yes, we provide coffee, plastic cups, and covers for our employees and guests, and yes, we do.
Okay. Through an informal survey of 5 cities from Hibbing to Biwabic, there is no other municipality in our area that provides this service, and I'm not sure how their budgets are looking this year. I know from January through July, that total had been $5,200. And I'm not sure what the government contract service requirements are. I know for various construction projects, bids need to go out. I am curious if bids went out on who supplies the coffee. Because $10,000 a year is a significant amount.
Yeah, it's not just for our employees, it's for other things as well, for special events. See, the city holds a special event, we have a meet and greet, or we have something, we'll provide coffee and maybe even some rolls or something, for these events as well. That's all part of the coffee thing too. It's not just for an individual employee. So
Sure, absolutely.
if you're asking us to cut there, we'll certainly look at, we'll try to get a breakdown for you of where we have our coffee and who we serve it to.
From the breakdown on the invoices, it was specifically break room supplies. Are meetings held with the general public in break rooms?
Meetings are held with the break room supplies. Yes, it's all the same stuff. Doesn't matter. So when there's a meeting here and we have coffee, it's the same coffee pot that we would drink out of.
Okay. My other curiosity, I don't understand golf. I don't golf. I don't do the golf. I appreciate the 17 options that have been explored up until this point. I know one of my concerns that I had spoken to one of the counselors about, there was a $43,000 payment in 2 weeks for operating costs for the labor contract and management contract. I did get the golf course contract, and maybe there's more information that I should be asking for to see where that $43,000 in 2 weeks is being expended. Would that be a wise choice?
Yes, because there's the Golf Pro contract and then his staff contract. So if he's got his staff working, if it's summer months, then that's where that's going.
And a portion of the deficit for the golf course is depreciation. Unfortunately, the government requires us to depreciate property we can't get a tax break on, so we have to depreciate. That's $80,000. And then there's a deficit with respect to the golf course restaurant contract. You got utility costs of right around $62,000. So that is being considered as how we alleviate that moving forward. And then the city bought 10 new golf carts in 2022, and that's what caused the deficit. That was the deficit. Now that's in 2022, different in 2023. So just to give you a little bit of insight there.
Sure, and that audit was as of December 22nd, or December 2022, is that true?
Correct.
My other curiosity is, and I'm sure it's factored into the revenues and expenditures, I notice on reoccurring Golf Pro Shop purchases that are done by taxpayer dollars. Is that then reimbursed by the golf course?
That's our revenue.
That's the revenue, okay.
Our revenue.
Sure. In that same contract with the golf course manager, there's a 25% profit share in that. So we buy the products, but then he benefits from that. Is that true?
If the golf course makes money, which he has never had that happen yet.
Never had a positive, understood. At the last meeting on Tuesday, there was some comments made that this is inciting panic and fear. And my taxes right now are $3,766. 60% of that goes to the city of Virginia. Of an average of 10 different property tax pulls, about 60% is allocated to the city and 20% to the county, and the rest, there's different miscellaneous charges. With that, page 82, that was included. Thank you for pointing that out, Counselor Paulson, and thank you for sending it, Britt. You're amazing. Taxes on a $250,000 home are going to increase $1,000. Although that might just be $14 a week with the rising cost of everything else and a limited hours of, work hours, it's really hard to make up that if those taxes increase. And then, as this gal had mentioned, the roads and streets, where's the attention to the infrastructure? I had proposed, following the city of Hibbing's business model, where the PUC and the city work together to essentially legally double dip into some federal dollars to cover some projects. The Public Works Director told me that they would never follow a city of Hibbing business model. And they're on phase 12 of 16 in that slip lining project that they are doing to update outdated infrastructure.
We do partner with the Department of Public Utilities on a variety of projects. Public Works and Public Utilities are close together when we do our street and alley projects. When we do repair work on the streets, they work closely with us with respect to that. So we do collaborate with them on a regular basis. We share equipment. We do all kinds of things with the Department of Public Utilities.
And then my final question, during that audit, Knutson had made some points about how some of the either errors or non-compliance or things that were coming up were due to a turnover in staff or a lack thereof staff. Is that true?
Turnover in staff.
Turnover in staff. So who has the hiring authority for the city of Virginia?
City Council.
We do. City Council by recommendation of staff. Councilor Motley.
It's a little bit more complicated than that. We are given a candidate. We are not allowed to be involved in the process of seeing the applicants or being a part of anything. A name is presented to us, and we are told this, we have to say yes.
You don't interview?
I have never been involved in any interview process in the 9 months I've been here.
We have had interview committees numerous times this last year.
Let me explain, or correct me if I'm wrong. Our largest our largest union is AFSCME. The city council is not allowed to be involved in the interview process for any AFSCME employee. Am I correct?
No. position that's brand newly created follows the hiring policy that I believe Counselor Paulson and a few others were on that personnel committee?
Personnel is Counselor Paulson, Counselor Freelieb, and Counselor Beyondich.
On the last position that is going through, can I say the new position?
Internal postings you're speaking about, Counselor Motley.
Okay.
In the finance office, it wasn't an internal posting, it was an external posting that, 2 of them actually, that we did fill those positions with.
Yeah, there's difference between internal, external postings, contract language, those kind of things.
So we aren't involved on internal postings,
Correct.
which is the majority of the postings. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In that budget handout, I only have a couple points, and I appreciate the conversation. Again, Mayor Cuffey, you're really great about inviting conversation, and that is
This is what we're here
appreciated.
for, please.
What do other entities in the area do, considering this is a large ASME area? Are the counselor a part of from the start to the end? Do you know? You don't know? Okay. And the League of Minnesota Cities covers your guiding documents on the hiring procedures. Is that true?
We have our own hiring policy.
Okay. Do you have a hiring procedure file that is open to the public?
We have a hiring policy.
Is that within the,
Actually, on our website, with most of our policies, it's virginiamn.us/employee.
employee?
Yep, most of our policies are on there.
Okay. And like we had discussed, it's kind of clunky,
And we've changed that hiring policy a number of occasions, a number of times over the last couple of years with city council input.
which is great. And that, circles back to the 3,000 hours of comp time from the difference, and with the snow, that is understandable. But my daughters attended a private school, and I watched a little girl almost get run over by a loader because of the big drift in the middle as they were clearing the streets. I'm hoping that there's going to be a different process going forward for this year in terms of how snow removal is done. I know there isn't any nice, convenient way, especially with the amount of snow last year, but that was terrifying to witness. And then finally, the St. Louis County didn't have the information out yet, but just like you, they have to set their maximum by September 30th. Sometimes there's a misconception that rising values increase property taxes. That isn't necessarily true. The city or the county posted on their website their max levy presentation, and a $200,000 home last year saw a $148 reduction in their tax liability because the rising values were dispersed amongst the county. And so I'm really concerned with $1,000 extra a year. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you. We have union contracts, but I'll defer to Sherry. You're the Human Resources
I
Director. I
believe,
could explain it, but we'll have her do it.
Is Amanda in the audience? Amanda?
Yeah, this is Amanda Metza, the ASME labor representative. Amanda, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. What question would you like me to answer specifically? Why the council is not involved in? So the council has, and the city has, a hiring policy. They are also obligated to follow the union contract as it applies to internal postings. So the Personnel Committee, in conjunction with the City Council, and forgive me if I'm explaining anything wrong, and please correct me because this is not my expertise, is involved with the union that is recognized to represent a position in the creation of a position. When that position is created, it is then offered per the guidelines outlined in the collective bargaining agreement and available for posting. If it is an internal posting, the contract clearly outlines how that posting is awarded. And typically that is by meeting the standards outlined in the job description. So you must meet the minimum qualifications, and then also on the basis of seniority. If it is an external position, so if there are no internal candidates who apply for that position, then an external position goes to the street, and the council, per the city policy, may be involved, is that fair to say, Britt, in the process from that point, based on those external applicants. And so I'm not sure that I can speak to anything except that it is outlined within the collective bargaining agreement how internal applicants are handled within the bargaining unit. Does that answer what you're looking for, some assistance, or do you have any further questions?
Not really.
Okay.
Would a policy change by the council change their ability to interview a job applicant?
A collective
And
bargaining.
in
go ahead.
agreement with the collective bargaining.
So
A change could be made.
a collective bargaining agreement, or, excuse me, any policy that impacts the terms and conditions of employment of an employee covered under collective bargaining agreement is subject to negotiation.
It's under negotiation.
It is subject to bargaining,
It's subject to negotiation.
correct.
So policy changes could correct your problem.
But can I clarify what is the concern with an internal applicant or the existing process?
Nothing, I'm just stating a fact. Thank you.
But I'm unclear what the question being raised is in concern, in relation to.
Well, I don't mean this with any disrespect, I really don't. But this is a labor agreement that's intact, it's been here for a long, long time. This has never been a problem before, and I don't mean problem, but I mean this is a process we follow. And if we want to change the hiring policy with respect to internal postings, then we have to go to the bargaining unit and negotiate that. That just makes sense to which to do that. And I don't think this has anything to do with the levy. It has nothing to do with the budget thing itself. It just has to do with a question about how our process works. But this doesn't impact the levy in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't impact our budget in any way, shape, or form. It's a hiring process procedure. So, I mean, I don't see an issue here.
Mayor, if I may, I
And
don't.
you can come up, sir, after.
Yeah, I'm not, I agree with you that I'm not clear as to the relevance to the subject that's on the agenda. But I would state that if there is specific cause to have a discussion, then it is appropriate to bring forward in negotiations. But terms and conditions of employment are mandatory subjects of bargaining under PELRA.
Under the Public Labor Relations Act, we're required to do that.
And
yes.
this would be a term and condition of employment. And so
Correct.
it would need to be, any change would need to be negotiated.
Thank you very much. Sir?
Mr. Mayor, could I speak in regards to,
Yeah, come on up, sir, and Councilor Motley.
sorry, I won't be long. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you guys all for coming. I just wanted to give you a little history on the City of Virginia's levy increase over the last, we'll say, 5 years or so. Well, starting in 2019, the levy was increased 3%. In 2020, it was increased 8%. 21 was 2%, 22 3%, 23 4.5%. Insert 24 31%. Okay, that's your history on where we're at right now. I also want to thank the City of Hibbing for giving me a little information earlier today. I'm going to give you an idea of the square footage of Hibbing, which happens to be 186 square miles. Population 16,077. Virginia, 19 square miles. Population 8,216. That's roughly half. Okay, and you can't even compare the square mileage. Fact of the day today, Hibbing, 128 full-time employees with twice the population. City of Virginia, per our city administrator today, 137 with half the population. I wanted to take a moment to talk about the current population of the City of Virginia. As of 2023, it currently sits at 8,216. The largest population on record that I could find when I was searching this weekend was in 1990, 33 years ago, when the population was 9,437. The difference between the 1990 population and the current 2023 population is 1,221 residents. To put that into perspective, let me repeat, we have 1,221 less residents than we did in 1990. We currently continue to lose residents inside the city of Virginia every year at a rate of roughly 0.72%. This ultimately affects the tax base that is still living here, as you will be paying potentially more as the population declines and the number of Virginia city employees continue to rise. The city of Virginia has shrunk 8.8% since the year 2000. We are currently 11.7% smaller than we were in 1990. The city, in my opinion, clearly has a huge spending problem. Raising the levy anywhere between 31 to 44% will never fix the ultimate problem, which is the most city employees ever in our city's history, with a continued declining population in the city of Virginia. Raising the levy this unprecedented amount will only be a Band-Aid for future year 2024 and not slow down the taxpayer dollars. The most important services for a city to provide are public safety, police, fire, EMS, public utilities, water, sewer, electricity, public works, good streets and alleys, etc. And after hearing you talk, Julianne, Councilor Paulson, I don't even know if this is going to stand on a leg, but I'm going to make it anyway, and we'll see what happens with the council. I would like to make a motion to direct city staff to look at cutting non-essential services and drop the levy, and give us 4 options here. Drop the levy to 10, 12, 15, and 20% for year 2024 and see what it looks like for balancing the budget in 2024. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Motley. Sir? If his light is in green, please turn it on there, and welcome to the City Council, and please state your name.
I made a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What was the motion was? I'm sorry. The motion was?
I would like to make a motion to direct city staff to look at cutting non-essential services and drop the levy to 10%, 12%, 15%, and 20% for year 2024, and see what that looks like with balancing the budget for 2024. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Councilor Motley. Is there support? Is there support? Is there support? I'll stop. Oh, okay, then.
All support for
Okay,
discussion.
very good. Supported by Councilor Motley. Supported by Councilor Paulson for further discussion. Please have a little bit more patience, sir. Councilor, there's further discussion. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor Motley, could you just clarify what you want them to give, you want city staff to give us information on those percentages from the levy?
Yep, dropping it from 31% and giving us 4 other options, which probably are looking at cutting non-essential services.
And then does that take the 31% off the table?
Absolutely. I'm looking at 10, 12, 15, or 20.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, motion by Councilor Motley, supported by Councilor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Sure, absolutely. You want, okay, want some discussion on the motion, further discussion, your name for the record, sir, and welcome to the budget meeting.
My name is Jamie Winger. I sit on the Planning and Zoning Committee. I also own 2 businesses, 2 homes in Virginia. So I kind of in the middle of this whole thing, but to your motion, I guess that's where we're at. I was going to ask to follow Mr. Lenzy's advice to bring an outside firm to help guide you guys, right? Not with kind of what you're saying, and I know you're asking internally, but I do feel an outside source to kind of come in. You know, I know none of us want to see jobs cut, right? I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, the reality is this is a huge budget. Can't hear? Sorry. But it's a big issue, right? My other shoes, I'm actually a union president here, attached to United Taconite. You know, even with the planning and zoning, we wouldn't make those decisions without bringing outside professionals to help us guide us, right? I wouldn't go negotiate a contract without bringing the international union and our lawyers with. So please, I'm asking you guys, thank you first for your donating all this time you guys do, but please get some outside help to make this decision, right? And get those numbers you want from outside that are gonna come in without, I don't wanna say something to gain, but with a clear head of this to guide us. I mean, this is for all of us, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winger. So it has been moved and supported. Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things I'd like to address is the dwindling population. And that's because we've had no place for people to move to. We have had 3 entities come to this room and want to talk about building apartment buildings, and they've been shut down 3 times. So I just want to clarify that decisions that have been made earlier are now affecting us now. So I want to be clear about that. In order for me to vote affirmatively on this action, I need to understand what an essential service is, because what an essential service is to one person changes from another person. The library has been thrown around this building, this room a little bit, and I want to talk about an essential service for low-income people. The library is a safe place that our low-income residents can utilize to better themselves, to stay safe, to access resources they cannot find anywhere else. There's very little in this town that I see as non-essential. How we do it and how we're structuring it should be looked at. But I need to know clarification, and I think the staff need to know what that term means so that they can accurately look at what we're doing. My other point of clarification is this council has not officially recommended a levy increase. The number that was presented to us was if we were to meet the fire and safety. That's it. There was not, we asked them what that would look like. That's it. There's not been a recommendation from the staff of how much to raise it. That's one of those things that's been floating out there that isn't true. We asked them if we were going to cover, based on the USDA, what that looks like. Our staff do what we ask them to do. You said it a couple times, Mr. Lency, that we are ultimately responsible. Yes, we are. But my question then is, where do we get the money to hire an outside consultant? We're looking at slashing or getting, pardon my verbiage, we're looking at getting rid of a $5,000 break room budget. Pretty sure that if we hire a couple of consultants to come in and go through everything, it's going to cost a lot more than $5,000. So every decision we make is related to another decision that we've made, we will make, or other things. I've been taking a lot of notes and listening, and I have been following along with this budget. I've sat in this chair now for 7 years. Prior to that, I sat in the audience probably for a good 7 years, listening and learning. Unfortunately, this is not a home budget where I can just shut off the Netflix to save money. I cannot stop my internet to save money. Everything is connected to something else. It's a complex web. Yes, we can build a $50,000 or 50,000 square foot garage, but our public safety staff live in that building 24 hours a day, every other day for 3 or 4 days. They get to go home to their families and then they come back. It's not about housing equipment. It's about the quality of our staff and what they can provide for us. If we outsource, we're going to lose services. We're going to lose quality of life. Your insurance rates will go up if we cut our public safety, our fire department coverage. They will go up substantially. Several years ago, we actually got a higher rating because of our response, because of the hard work of our staff at the Public Safety Center. I have ridden along numerous times, the fire department, police department. I have gone to the ITMEC and I have worked shifts there as a volunteer to learn about what's going on. I highly encourage the rest of this council to do that. There are very little time in any department where people are just standing around doing nothing. I understand what perception is about the ITMEC and it's not making any money, and we paid a consultant a lot of money a long time ago to give us a pro forma. We did that. We're already beating that pro forma. So we've done some of the stuff you suggested, and we're trying to work through it. Now, I don't know what the answers are either. I appreciate that people have come forward with answers. That's really what I've been looking for. But we're trying to get to the levy, the number of the levy, so that we can submit it, so we have some place to start. We're still throwing stuff at the wall right now, trying to figure it out. We need a solid number, and then we can work backwards from that. And that's what I would like to get accomplished tonight, is a number to start, so that we can get that into the state, and then we can really start having those meetings. If we're going to continue to have as many of you here as there are, we need to move this meeting so people can be comfortable and be heard. I'm fully in support of that, and it's not easy. Some of you have run for office. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. But we are ultimately responsible. We are ultimately, in the pack we got today, page 5, page 6, talks about what our responsibilities is. So there's not a consultant who's going to tell us what to do. I can guarantee you that. They're going to give us some options. We have to make that decision in this room, the 7 of us. Thank you, Mayor. We're getting a little late as well, so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Let's vote on the motion first that came from Councilor Motley and supported by Councilor Paulson for discussion. To refresh everybody's memory, would you please read the motion back, Pam, and then we'll vote on that, and then you can come forward, Mr. Lindsay.
Moved by Councilor Motley, supported by Councilor Paulson, to direct city staff to present to the council a proposal to review the levy at 10, 12, 15, and 20%, and a proposal to cut non-essential services.
Mayor, if I may ask for a clarification?
I'm sorry.
If I may ask for clarification, what is non-essential services?
Yeah, what does non-essential services mean? So is that, would that be, if I may presume, the police, fire, public works, is that what you consider to be essential services, or what do you consider to be essential services, Councilor Motley, in your motion?
Anything for non-essential being outside of police, fire, EMS, water, sewer, electricity, public works, good streets, alleys. So leave those and look at everything else.
And the general fund we're talking about. The general fund is City Hall, Library, Parks and Rec.
Okay, you want me to pick?
I need to clarify what's non-essential. I'm asking the question.
I mean, can I rephrase where we could cut in the general fund? Is that thank you. Thank you, Councilor Paulson.
You may, would that be a part of your motion to
sure
amend?
would.
Okay,
Sure.
go ahead.
I would like to amend that to, Councilor Paulson, you want to help me with that?
Councilor Paulson?
Pam, could you read it back one more time?
One more time, read the motion, please, Pam.
Moved by Councilor Motley, supported by Councilor Paulson, to direct city staff to present to the council a proposal to review the levy at 10, 12, 15, and 20%, and a proposal to cut non-essential services.
How about a proposal to, just a proposal for staff cut?
That would work too. I'd be fine with that amendment.
Okay, so you're amending your motion to just clarify staff cuts as opposed to, and taking the term non-essential out of your motion.
Yes.
And that is an agreeable to the second of them. That motion would be you, Councilor Paulson.
Correct.
Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Friedlieb? No. Paulson?
Aye.
Beyondich?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Aaronzelli? Yes. Huffy?
Aye. Motion
Motley?
passes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Aye, motion passes. So we can still accomplish what you're asking for by, you're asking, the motion on the floor was to get these proposals together based on those percentages. But that doesn't necessarily mean that other things can't be done as well. I mean, you can look at, because whatever that motion is, when staff comes back with that, the recommendation is going to be where can we cut, what we have to cut. So, I mean, that's what we're looking at.
Correct. Like I mentioned, the levy is strictly the general fund.
Strictly for the general fund, correct.
That's what we'll be looking at. So we're talking parks, fire, police, everybody. I mean, we'll have to look at everything to see what we can cut.
And I understand that, I want to see it, so thank you.
Oh, very good, thank you. Now, Mr. Lency, did you want to come forward and address? Mr. Greg Lency, thank you.
I would just like to respond to Councilor Johnson that this ship is on fire and it is sinking. Everything's on the table here. You're blowing away 50 grand a week at one spot. Non-essential, essential, everything's got to be on the table. The library doesn't have to close, but we don't need a full staff. If it has to close, it has to close. It's not permanent or any other aspect of the city. No one's asking for that. This is a short-term, probably, a stopgap emergency measure to stop spending $50,000 a week. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I don't know what else I can say about that. I'm not directing that at you. I'm directing it at everybody. We need to come to reality that that's what's happening right now. That's based off your auditor's number. I'm not dragging that out of the woods. That came right from your auditor. So everybody, the golfers don't want the golf course shut, right? Nobody wants that shut. Nobody wants the library shut. Nobody wants anything shut. We don't want to see people laid off. But what we want, and what we have to do are two very different things. And it's going to be difficult. Nobody said it was going to be easy. We're to the point now where it is difficult. It's really difficult. And, you know, I understand your point. There's people that need that. So maybe we can cut the staff drastically and keep some assistance there for those people. That's all I'm saying. Everything's got to get looked at here. This is dire straits. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, but we're not going to spend our way out of here. We're not going to levy our way out of here. It's going to come through real hard, honest discussion with the citizens, the council, to come to the determination of where we're going to get this money from. Accounting is so simple, they don't need a class for it. It's how much money is coming in and how much are we spending. You don't need a professor or an accountant to tell you how to do that. It's so simple. Every business owner in this town knows how to balance that book. I didn't eat if I didn't make money. My bills got paid, I got paid. If my bills didn't get paid, I didn't take a paycheck. That's the way it's done when you're running your own business. It's hard. It's difficult, right? You know, I don't go out for dinner if I can't afford it. Pizza comes to the house, and that's if things are great. So these are tough decisions. And, you know, it's tasked upon you and every member here to take care of this. And everybody in this city will help do what they can, right? But they're saying the way the economy is now, every little bit's going to pinch everybody hard. You know, it's not a good time right now. And nobody wants to see these cuts. Nobody. We want the city to succeed. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Go ahead and respond there, Mr. Councilor Johnson, then we'll go to Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
I don't have a response for Mr. Lindsay. Appreciate your comments, but since the motion passed about maximum being 20%, I will make a motion that we set the levy at 20% for the purposes of paperwork and submitting it to the state.
Yeah, Councilor Johnson makes a motion to set the preliminary levy, which needs to be to the state of Minnesota by September 30th at 20% as a starting point. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion. Councilor Freely.
One of the objectives of this meeting was to come to that conclusion tonight, was it not? And we are not held to that 20%. If we come to conclusions with regard to cuts that are necessary, that'll reduce that particular levy that we've set tonight, correct?
That is correct. And by setting the levy at 20%, preliminary levy at 20%, if that holds, that preliminary levy stays at 20% as of September the 30th, that cannot be raised. We can only lower it. So it's set at 20% for the working session to determine, we have a lot of work to do in order to get there. So that's the purpose of this,
So it's
was to set a
incumbent on
levy.
us, it's incumbent on us tonight to set that. That's what we came here to do, but we're not held to that 20% once we discuss further what potential reductions we will make that will bring us in line with what we need to do to give us budget responsibility.
Yeah, the decision we make today about setting the preliminary levy only restricts us. We can never raise it any higher. We can only see it at the same or reduce it. So that was a motion in support. Further discussion?
And I'd like to make some further commentary, but I'll do that after the motion.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councilor Freely. Further discussion, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I won't be supporting this motion for the simple fact, we have not done the work. We have not done the work. So until the work is done, we have till the end of September. So if we have to meet daily, I want to see work done before a levy is set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Beyondich, moved and supported. Further discussion. Councilor Paulson on the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually going to echo Councilor Beyondich. I can't support this at this time. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Did you want to say something about this motion? Oh, you have to come forward, please, so we all can hear you. Thank you. Turn the mic on. And once again, thank you.
I'm just curious, last year, what was the proposed by September 30th and what was the final? And historically, are those numbers, was it 20% last year at this time? And then
It wasn't 20%.
has it ever been 20%?
No,
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, it has been moved and supported to set the levy, preliminary levy at 20%, moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion, roll call, please, Pam.
Paulson,
No.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Huffy,
Yes.
Motley,
No.
Friedlieb.
No.
Motion fails 4-3. Thank you. Okay. Councilor Freely, additional comments?
I just want to say, I'm proud to live in this town because what happened tonight with all of us in this room is a template for successful civil discourse. And the rest of the world should see the city of Virginia, how we do it. Thank you very much for setting the tone and tenor tonight, for giving us a hand and giving us collaborative thoughts in terms of like how we can do this together. That's what we have to do in a city like this, of this size. And I appreciate it very much. And all of you sitting here listening and contributing in the way that you did by being listening. I wasn't elected here to panic, and that's what people are concerned about my comments with regard to that. I was elected to listen and to give thoughtful consideration to every issue that comes to me at this table. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I was given the opportunity to do tonight, because people weren't shaking their fists and pointing their fingers and raising their voices. This is a template for the rest of the country, as far as I'm concerned, what happened in this room tonight. Now, we will do what we need to do to make decisions. There are going to be people that are panicking in this community, and those are the people that potentially will be losing their jobs in this community. So there are people that will be panicking. I feel for them. But decisions are going to have to be made. Very difficult, tough decisions have to be made. And when you talk about a budget in a city, when over 60% of that is attributed to staff costs, where else are you going to look to make significant cuts to a budget? Unfortunately, that's the reality. And that's the tough decisions that are made by elected officials that make us not be able to sleep well at night when we have to make those kinds of decisions. But in any event, the tone and tenor that was set in this meeting tonight was exceptional. Everybody sitting in this room should be proud of themselves and proud of the city that they live in, because this is a template for successful civil discourse. Thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Freely. So we're looking, the motion to set a preliminary levy at 20% did not pass. So we have to have some additional budget discussions to set the preliminary levy prior to September the 30th. And so there was a previous motion to direct staff to look at different amounts of percentages about that. So we need to have that discussion, so we need to have a motion to set another budget meeting as quickly as we can, but give staff a little bit of time to gather information that was requested in the first motion by Councilor Motley, and so that we can have that frank discussion and be able to come to a consensus on where we want to set the preliminary levy by September the 30th. So we're looking for that motion moving forward. Councilor Freely.
Can I ask, from an administrative standpoint, have department heads been tasked with consideration for a reduction of FTEs in their departments yet? Okay.
Not just staff, it's services. We are going to have to talk about services, not mowing parks, not opening a library, services, because this is general fund. This is not special revenue or enterprise.
That's ultimately resulting in the loss of the staff, however, of course. Correct.
Thank you. So we need to set another budget meeting. So direct staff to do so as soon as we can. I'll meet together. So hopefully everybody should be able to be present here whatever date was set. And then, of course, let the public know as well how moving forward with that. So looking for a potential motion for that. Councilor Paulson?
I have a question, Mayor.
Sure.
Just based on the last comment Britt made, you just stated general fund and not special revenue fund.
That was the motion.
I don't believe it was the motion to just stay under the general fund. That was not the motion.
It was.
The levy directly affects the general fund. It doesn't affect special revenue or enterprise.
Correct.
But we've got under special revenue, then again, you have the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Correct. That recreation, one portion
tennis
of it.
for all.
Yep. Under special revenue, correct, are not part of the general levy.
Was the motion to only do the general levy, to look at staff cuts only under the general fund?
The proposed budget we gave to you already has staff cuts for Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
And when
But that's not the motion. The motion is to,
when the motion was made and there was a second, it was clarified by the city administrator, this is only from the general fund. Yes, and that's what we voted on. Correct. Now, if that wants to change, we can certainly change it, but that was the correct motion.
Pam does not, could you read the motion?
Moved by Counselor Motley, supported by Counselor Paulson, to direct city staff to present to the council a proposal to review the levy at 10, 12, 15, and 20%, and a proposal. The original motion was for non-essential services, but it was changed to a proposal for staffing cuts.
Staffing cuts, not specifically specified in the general fund, which should mean that everything is on the table. That was my assumption when I supported that motion.
Correct. That's certainly fine, but again, the levy portion that she's asking us to look at, 2015, 10, is going to be those that are in the general fund.
Only the general fund, right? Correct.
But our overall operating of it's inclusive, and that's what we need to look at.
I agree, 100%.
Right.
The special revenues and the enterprise need to be looked at, but the
Right.
levy is the general fund.
And I understand that, but I wanted to clarify what staff is being requested to do so that I'm not wasting staff time doing something that wasn't in the intention,
Sure,
in the motion.
sure.
So does that mean everything is on the table for discussion?
And clarify that, what do you want me to, where are you targeting? What do you want me to target?
I'm not targeting anything. I'm
I'm
saying
just saying, what do you want me to look at? I mean, we don't have staff at Tennis for All. We don't have
we
staff.
have a contract service.
We do. We do.
Okay.
And that contract is up, so we do need to verify that.
And so I guess what I'm trying to say is everything should be on the table. And you're asking, what do you want me to pick on? I'm not,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the general fund is going to be, the general fund is very
it
slim
should be
already.
all departments. That's why I supported the motion going forward. Or I would not have supported the motion just to pick and choose.
Yeah, I think the difference is that we look at everything, but
And that's why I was trying to clarify non-essential versus essential. What are you calling essential and what are you calling non-essential?
Okay, we took that out of there and we said staff cuts.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the only difference is that when you're looking at the levy, It affects the general fund, not the other services. But we could still just talk about the cuts in the other services or making adjustments to that. But the discussion, the motion was for the levy, and the levy follows is the general levy, is where the levy is in the general fund. But the others are the special revenue funds, the others, but those can still be discussed. It's just that wasn't, that's not the general levy. So both things can be accomplished at the same time. Okay, thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Mayor, I will make a motion to direct staff to also present special revenue fund and enterprise fund options for budget cuts or non-renewal of contracts.
Okay, motion by Councilor Johnson. Is there support? Supported by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion on Councilor Freely.
This is getting confusing. I mean, so like, if we are setting the levy limit and it's only exclusive to the general fund, then why are we talking beyond that? Let's just get that accomplished. That's what we're here for tonight. Yes, there are other considerations for reductions that are needing to be discussed, but from the levy standpoint, what everybody's concerned about tonight is what we need to accomplish. And that's relative to the general fund.
Right, so we do both, but the levy only relates to the general fund, and that's what the point I was trying to make is. No. But the levy is only the general fund is the levy, not the other funds. But the other funds can be discussed, but not with the levy set, is only the general fund levy. Sir, please come forward, state your name for the record, and welcome to the budget meeting.
Jacob Littler. I'm also on a Planning and Zoning Commission. I guess I would like a little bit of clarification, because you're saying the general fund versus the special revenue and the enterprise fund, but you're also saying the special revenue funds and the things that are covered by the enterprise fund are loss leaders, correct?
Cases, yes.
Okay, and where's the money to make up those losses coming from?
It usually comes from the general fund if it's needed. And we are
So
projecting that
these
next
things
year.
do affect the
Yes.
general fund and the general
But we
levy.
don't need to have those balanced by September 30th. We
I
need the
understand,
levy
but
balanced by September 30th.
I'm just trying to make sure that you get some perspective on why some folks might be getting
totally
frustrated
understand.
about
Yeah.
how this is being clarified, because yes, they're separate funds, but they absolutely are impacting the general fund. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Littler. Okay. All right.
And the special revenue enterprise don't need to be solved by the 30th of September. The levy needs to be solved by the levy needs to be solved by the 30th of September, not the special revenue and not the enterprise. We have until December 30th for those ones.
Right. We don't have to make any decisions on only on the levy itself by September 30th. Everything else is in play. Just that we have to make that motion. I'll have that done by the 30th. So do we have a motion to direct staff to set another budget meeting? Do we have that yet? We should have that. Need to set it. We have another motion. What's the motion? By Councilor Johnson? Oh, it's still further discussion on that. Is there any further discussion on Councilor Johnson's motion? And would you please read the motion back, Pam, once again?
I'm not sure did Counselor Friedlieb support that?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Councilor Freely supported.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb to present information on the special revenue and enterprise funds for discussion at the budget meeting.
Okay, there was a motion and support. Is there any further discussion in that regard? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, may we have a motion to set another budget meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Motley makes a motion for staff to set another budget meeting as quickly as possible. Once enough of the other information that was requested at this meeting on the other motions. Is there support for Councilor Martin's motion?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. One last opportunity for anybody to speak. We are going to set another budget meeting. Everybody be aware of that. Hopefully, we'll have some additional information, make some progress in that regard. We'll let everybody know when that budget meeting is going to be. I want to thank staff for taking the opportunity to put all these documents together for everybody to take a look at. Took a lot of staff time in which to put that together. And once again, I couldn't see any better than Councilor Freely. We appreciate all you coming to this meeting and expressing your viewpoints and giving us some solutions and input on how we need to move forward with these very challenging decisions that we have to make for the 2024 budget. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Any final comments? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. If I make a motion, will this come forward tomorrow at the council meeting if it passes? Tonight's meeting, or is this a special meeting? Does it move it forward to the next council meeting, or is it?
Yeah, it's tomorrow night.
So does it get approved tonight or tomorrow?
Tomorrow
Okay,
night,
thank
yes.
you.
It'll be
Thank
approved
you,
tomorrow
that's what I
night.
was
Yes,
asking.
yes, Councilor
So
Paulson.
not a special meeting, okay.
Yeah.
So just based on what some of the conversation is, I guess I'd like to make a motion to direct city staff to maybe get some quotations on a feasibility study regarding the public safety center.
For my clarification, feasibility study in what respect?
The financial portion of the feasibility,
Okay, motion by Councilor Paulson for direct city staff to get a feasibility study on the financial performer for the Iron Trail Morty's Event Center. Is there support? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, for the Public Safety Center. I apologize. The motion was for the Public Safety Center. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Please, Councilor Freely.
You alluded to the fact that those conversations are already in gear.
They are.
And so would this be redundant to those conversations and cost us additional monies that we may not be able to afford?
I'm just looking.
Okay, all right, good, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none.
Have an outside source,
Yes.
not people that are involved with the development or at the state end.
Yeah, that's the purpose of the motion.
Point is this outside source.
That's the purpose of the motion.
Already.
No, he won't be part of that.
Direct where to go or make a
We'll do that financial study, feasibility study, and we'll hire an outside source in which to do that. It shouldn't be our auditor, because he's our inside source. So there's a motion support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, anything else that needs to come before the council today and the committee of the whole before we adjourn? Councilor Beyondich.
And I would also like to thank everybody for their interest and concerns and for coming forward. It makes a difference when people are in the audience. And I am very concerned about this and setting the levy as I represent all of you sitting here. I will be your voice. I always have been. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Yeah, the purpose was to set the levy. That's what we had this meeting for, to talk about the budget, set the levy. We did do that, and so we'll have to have another budget meeting to try to accomplish that. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. Have a safe trip home. No other items to come before the council to meet. We'll stand adjourned at 8:20 p.m. Thank you. Have a good night. We stand adjourned.